Sup, folks?
Hey, what's up, guys? This is another episode of Tell Us About Yourself. I'm Dustin Garman, of course, and be sure to throw things at my co host.
You gotta stop saying that. That's rude.
Throw them chairs. Just
hmm
do it.
And we have our guest today, Mr. Bob the Brain. Ow.
That didn't
It
take
already
very long.
started.
It did not take very long at all. But Dustin, you have a few opening things you want to say before we start.
Yes, of course. Up north. Let's see here. What's that? What's their? I'm trying to remember their store's name.
Legendary Realms.
Yeah, Legendary Realms. I'm sorry about that. Don't forget that Sunday is their CAC. So good luck to them players and everything up north.
Already sold out, if I'm not mistaken. So,
It's gonna be a big turnout. It seems like. Also, remember this weekend is Memorial Day. Be sure to thank all the veterans and everything. And enjoy, you know, spend time with your family and everything. Thanks to all the veterans. Today's guest, of course, is none other than the Brain, Bob Dunn. How's it going, brother?
How are you, Dustin? I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's no problem, brother. It's a pleasure having you. You know, I was starting to, I was, well, first questions first, how you been here lately? Are you fully kind of recovered or?
I am definitely not fully recovered. um, but I'm a lot better off than I was even a couple of months ago. It's spending time in the hospital. Basically, I was in the hospital from September through the end of January into early February. And so getting out was great. I mean, it meant that I was, out of the immediate emergency. I am definitely still going through strengthening and trying to get back, my ability to walk normally and, strength that I lost just from being off my feet. It's really amazing how quickly just a few weeks or months of not walking will just completely turn you back into a child,
mm-hmm.
where you can't even put any weight on your legs and hold yourself up. So that was quite an experience, and I'm happy to say that I am well enough now and independent enough now that I am going to try to go to the Legendary Realm CSC this weekend. So,
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Okay.
my intent is to go up there and put up a fifth second place in a New York, New Jersey CAC.
Why not instead just take a first place?
We'll see. I'm pretty sure I have more seconds in New York, New Jersey than any other player, and
Which is
we'll see.
impressive
We'll see
because
if that
you're located out
continues.
of Florida.
Yeah, that is correct.
Well, I will say this though, you in the past few weeks I've been noticing too, these online events you've been kicking ass. It's like you never left. I've been seeing you
I
placing up there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I got back up there. It definitely it's a challenge coming back with, I would say, a very different meta than when I left. Missing Grand Gathering, which was very tragic, and not being able to participate in the old school pack free for all that all of you who did go were a part of.
Oh, believe me, very few got to do that. Like, they did, like, maybe everyone got one, and then people were trying to do a second one, and like half of them were just getting payoff packs at that point.
Yeah, and then I guess James Booker just bought all the singles they had, right? Just bought every single single from all those old school packs.
I mean, they didn't even bring singles outside of the old school pack one, so it's kind of like there wasn't much to buy outside of that.
That is true.
And of course, their very nice little promo binder, which has just random knickknacks, paddywhacks, old like independent wrestlers, just one finisher from them because for some reason it got separated from all the other finishers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I've been fortunate enough to, I didn't lose too much of a step. I will say that I definitely remember, and I mean I've sort of roundabout told this story.
Mhm.
I when I remember things again, and I woke up in the hospital bed in downtown Orlando, which is not the same hospital that I checked myself into on September 22nd. I basically lost 3 or 4 weeks of memory. I don't
Mhm.
remember anything from September to mid-October. But it was definitely a little scary because like one of the things I was thinking at that time was I don't know if I remember how to play Super Show. I couldn't talk. I was, I my patient and dear wife had brought my iPad, so I could read the discussion group and I could follow along with things again at that point. But I had no idea what my timeline would look like in terms of getting back. I had no idea what, how bad the recovery and rehab were going to be. And, there were times where I thought I was going to be out in time for Thanksgiving, and then I thought I was going to be out in time for Christmas, and neither of those two things happened. So, it definitely feels good to get back in the game and stretch those muscles a little bit and make some people miserable with some decks that I still like a lot.
And that leads us to our first viewer question of tonight. The Italian Bombata asks, since you have been gone, what is your favorite and least favorite new card or card set?
Interesting.
I would assume including entrances into that.
Yeah, well, we don't need to rehash that debate, do we? I have my feelings about Impact's family, but it is what it is. It just screws over a whole bunch of predators that have already been built
With no counterplay.
with
Whereas
absolutely no counter for it.
a lot of
Right.
other things have counterplay. That's really the only thing that's a pain in it.
Yeah. There are a lot of interesting cards in the Bob Dunn deck, of course, which was, that was a nice surprise to wake up to
Mm-hmm.
when the local FCW guys and the boss actually came to visit me in the hospital and brought that in and showed me what they had built. So that was kind of cool. But I think probably the best new cards are the 4 to 6 line that block skill stops. I mean, it's
well, not necessarily skill stops. Skills with stops or
stops with a
skill requirement.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Will not stop a single leg crab. Will definitely stop a beg for mercy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a very interesting counterplay type thing. So, yeah, I mean, those are real interesting to have in the card pool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the final dungeon line, that was right when I went out.
Mm-hmm.
Spear into the final dungeon line is underrated, and if indeed boss finished it in the new 1-2-27 decks, then I think we're going to see a lot more of those get played.
Those are if your opponent has a stop in play, you can just blow up one of their cards.
Right.
A very
so basically,
powerful effect.
If you know your opponent has a beg for mercy, but you think you can win 2 turns in a row, you can afford to play into the beg for mercy and then throw the spear into the final dungeon and then use it to clear the follow-up beg for mercy. So I mean those kind of cards I think are about to come into heavy circulation again, depending on your skill lineup. Yeah, I think, least favorite new card, I don't know. There's nothing bad. I mean, I think that everybody is now coming around to realize the general vitality of the gathering line from last year. Gathering the sledgehammer, etc. I mean, there are no other cards in 10 through 12 that give you a recycle without other cards in play. So, and then Boss has sort of started to match those. There's the line in the old school deck that lets you draw one for each strike and then bury one, for instance. So you could say it's power creep, and it is. It is power
definitely
creep.
power creep.
But it also will lead to more efficient games, which I think is something Boss is fine with. I've never asked him, but I would say that Steve's target for a game of Super Show is about 15 minutes, not about 45 minutes.
Or an hour and a half like last night.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
And also sort of like an upgraded cards, like the 10 through this year, the 10 through 12, like I know one of them is the snap cutter number 11, like the one that adds it's +2 if you have another grapple, and then it says the match has no disqualifications. Those cards, I would say are pretty well upgraded.
Yeah, I mean a lot of those came out with the Ultra Cosmic Crusader box set, right? So this is one of my areas of nitpick frustration. Because I do think that having upgraded cards that are only available in blind packs is not exactly what Super Show was originally intended for.
That's right.
I think that
those that remember Boss saying there will never be a booster pack for Super Show. Well,
right.
that's the definition of booster packing right now.
Yeah, I mean the new 1 through 27s are many of them upgraded cards, many of them new cards, and only available in the random 1 through 27s. I know they'll correct that eventually. And I'll probably get some of those eventually, but to be honest, I think it's that is an area where the post this week from Matt Haas was, if they're upgraded cards, do you need the upgraded cards? Well, okay, no, but yes, you kind of do. I mean, you kind of do. If you're running a gut shot that doesn't have the +1 your next turn roll if the match has no DQ, then what happens when you play a New Jack or Raven, right? I mean,
Indeed.
then you're costing yourself a +1 for no reason. So I mean, that's just hurting yourself unnecessarily to not play the best version of every card in your deck.
Granted, Boss's retort to that is like, I can win with a pre-built pre-con El Super Hombre from the start of the game. But
well, he keeps making more super cards, so Super Hombre may win again and again and again, right? I mean, Angela already had pulled it off with the Play Pure Championship. And, I mean, I think Super Hombre just keeps getting better, not worse.
Well, of course, he's never going to get worse. The competitor doesn't have enough counterplay to get worse with cards. There's nothing that nerfs him. Fine, it's just not playing super cards, but that's just personal preference at that point. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to some questions. Rambo Apocalypse would like to know what your favorite competitor is in the game.
Oh boy. I mean, I can say myself, I guess, right?
Oh, of course. But what version of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Pick one. No, look, I mean, the brain came about before I even had heard of Colt Cabana. So I don't mean in the wrestling sense. I mean in the Super Show sense.
Yeah.
I had heard of Colt Cabana, the wrestler, but it was I know the exact event. I might even almost know the exact date. It would have been like March-ish 2019. Shady Jeff was the world champion.
Dark times.
Dark times indeed, and literal dark times, because we were playing an event in New York City, which I had traveled to, in the back of a bar, and then we were going to the Impact taping next door, and then we were going back to the bar afterwards for more gaming. And I remember I remember at that event, I was paired up with Matt Haas. I think it was Matt Haas. And I was playing probably Kenny Omega. I think that was like one of my early characters that I happened to be lucky to get a hold of.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost like three or four turn rolls in a row. And Boss was standing over to the side. I'm like, Boss, you got to make a character that can re-roll my turn roll. And that, a couple of months later, that's what we did. So, like, I had no idea about Cole Cabana. Obviously, he was first. But yeah, that was, I really like the ability to re-roll. So, for me, it's take some of the thing you can't control out of the game, right? And people just may not understand this in terms of a philosophy, but my philosophy is I can control what's in my deck better than I can control the die.
And you definitely can't control what's in your opponent's deck.
Well, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You play those new cards that let you look at the top three of your opponent's deck and flip them or put them on top or bottom or whatever. I can't even remember how those are worded, but yeah, now you can actually start to control what's in your opponent's deck. Gropar, Great and Powerful, certainly did that before anybody. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the things you can't control, the die is the number one for me. So, I like the characters that can cover up mistakes in terms of bad rolling. I mean, we've heard a lot about dice rolling and fair dice rolling and whatever else you want to say this week. But I think if you look at fair dice rolling, you would hope that in 6 rolls you would hit the 6 different sides of your die. So if in 6 rolls I lose 3 of those, then that means I get to re-roll. Now it only takes me 4 rolls to hit 6 sides of my die, in theory. Right? So I should win more turns that way.
That is definitely not gaming math, but probability it dictates that it should happen.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, every roll of the die is unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why you can't even say, like, if someone rolls 3 10s in a row, you can't say there's no way you're going to get another 10 on this 4th roll.
Yeah.
Every roll of the die is equally likely to roll the 10 as it is to roll the 5.
Yeah.
But in true probability spread, you should roll all 6 sides of the die on a fair die, fair rolling, fair case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer that the roll should hit a hard wall and roll back, which is why if you ever look at my setup, I always have a hard wall, deck box or something that I'm bouncing the die against so it rolls back.
Let's go craps dice rules now.
Craps rules are, well, I mean, look, not everybody has to do it, but I believe that's the fairest way to get a fair and even roll. I mean, you can't tell me it's not fair and even if the die literally hits a hard wall, which I have no control of the bounce off the wall, and then it rolls back on my playmat and turns over multiple sides. That's like that is the literal definition of a fair roll. And if you short it on the craps table in Vegas, the pit boss will let you know. Yeah, the pit boss will let you know.
Okay, so let's get off of that line. Let's go a little bit right when you were put into the hospital. It was literally days before Faction Wars. And your faction played, your faction lost, your faction broke up.
Yeah.
How did you feel? Basically, not even getting to enjoy this faction that you got to make.
Well, I mean, that was very unfortunate. Our reveal I thought was great. I built that faction with people I wanted to be in a faction with, and I thought we had a really good shot. I do want to give flowers to Candyman Dan for holding down in the leadership position, which he was not necessarily signing up for in my absence, and of course for the philosopher for playing in that that emergency 7th slot and taking my place where I obviously couldn't be around. I thought the group did really well. I thought that Candyman, Yasmin, Bobby O, Citizen X, myself, Philosopher. I thought that was a good group.
On paper,
But
it's a ridiculous group.
yeah,
Multiple champions. Uh, Lance being probably the weakest link on there on paper, but I mean, you've
Lance just
seen
not playing as often as anybody
exactly.
else, right? I mean, that's that. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be a weakling. It's just it's not playing as much, therefore not as familiar with all the opponent strategies and
I have to
counters and all that.
I have to joke about him every time I get a chance because he hates the seat of power.
Yes,
And
yes, he does.
wasn't even
Um,
my fault. Someone else was beating him with my character. Uh, but with that, it brings it to Kurhausen's question from a little earlier. If you were to put together a faction right now, who are your 6?
right now, that's really interesting. I mean, if we're looking at people that are available, there's
Let's not even look at people available. Let's do fantasy booking. Bob, you are faction leader. What 6 people do you want in that faction with you?
I mean, I want the 6 LFF singles champions in that faction with me, ideally, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you at that point go, well, okay, give me the world champion, give me the underworld champion, give me the hardcore champion, give me the US champion, give me the 2 tag team champions.
Mm-hmm.
And who am I missing? I'm sure I'm missing one. Give me the intergalactic champion. Sure. There's just like 7 or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah. My big reasoning against that is just because that is a lot of very big personalities that clash so hard.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that can happen, but I mean, look, when you're creating a faction, sometimes you just got to take care of business. I mean, you got to just get in there and try to win it, right? I mean, there's no other point to. Okay, my philosophy on factions is that factions are 2 things. They are a storytelling device. That's one perfectly reasonable aspect of being a faction,
Mm-hmm.
and they're an energy engine to win faction wars.
Oh yeah,
right? I mean, I enjoyed the storytelling portion of it that we did with Think Tank. I mean, it was not my choice for Think Tank to completely break up. I'll be honest. I didn't expect that to happen right away when I was coming back. That's what happened. And people always have a right to move on. If they've got if they've got a different story you want to tell, if you've got a better way to tell your story, or if you think you've got a better chance of winning with another group, go be with somebody else. I mean, I'd never hold somebody back or anything like that. So I think that there's a lot of deck chair shuffling right now on the Titanics.
Most definitely.
Especially given that the current faction war still is not done somehow.
No. Well, that's because it's been put on hiatus for the last 2 months. As soon as it comes down to the higher class in the finals, it usually takes an extra 4 or 5 months for it to actually end.
Well, ironically, anytime the higher class is losing, it takes Calais some time to figure out how to stop the bleeding.
Of course, Calais on vacation right now, so things are even longer.
Right, and so he's got to figure out how he can counter that problem. So I don't know. We'll see. I guess I think last I heard it was like 2-0, which means that one of the like 12 or 14 matches has occurred so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there will be a lot more to say on that. But it's next year's faction wars should be interesting. I'll say next year. We'll call it next season's faction wars, because I always think of Gen Con as being the beginning of the new season of Super Show, right?
It makes sense. It's a very good spot right in the middle of the year. But
yeah,
I mean, we have our end of year recap 2 months into the year.
Yeah, we don't do our award show until quite late. that's okay. That's not such a bad thing.
Oh,
It's
it
another
definitely
thing I
isn't.
wished I could have been at, to be honest. That would have
A
been
lot of
nice.
us wanted to be there. It's a difficult one to make.
Yeah, this is one of those things where if Grand Gathering is going to happen every year, I think people are going to have to make some tough decisions about what they go to now. I certainly, as a frequent flyer, frequent traveler, would would like to go to as many things as I can, but it is going to be a little more of a pick and choose situation now about
As-
what makes sense to go to.
Especially if they're going to every major large gaming convention like they used to again, pre-pandemic. Like,
It does seem like the things are picking up.
yeah.
I've gotten wind that there may be a convention coming here in Orlando at some point. And certainly Southern Fried is going into a second year there. I know that's going to be a big Deep South gathering point.
Almost definitely.
I'm hearing rumblings that the Tennessee Valley Authority is going to roll in there
Oh no.
this time. Last year, Hold the Line Harry was not there. His entire ACCW crew got skunked by my Florida team in what we called Border Wars, the tag team multiplayer knockout format.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Hold the Line Harry wants revenge this year on behalf of the ACCW guys. So I'm even hearing that South Bell may captain a team for a random Deep South group this year at Border Wars. So it's looking like Southern Fried, if you can make it, is going to be a lot of fun, which was definitely fun last year. But it is going to be harder for people to make those decisions. I mean, had an interesting conversation today with someone who feels very strongly that in-person play is the only way this game survives, the only way this game works. I think certainly the online play has been great, but in-person play is better. And if you can get out and do it, I always recommend that you go do it.
Oh, most definitely. I think that online play, the way it is done currently, is definitely not the best way of doing it. But most definitely, this game is a play in person is the most real feeling you'll get for this game.
Yeah. And playing matches that you put playing matches that you put a story and importance to.
Oh yes.
Right. So I mean, you've got to be willing to develop stories and let the storytelling part happen naturally, And I'm hoping that, again, with more convention appearances and more opportunities for surprises to happen, that we're going to see more like that in the coming years. I mean, many people in the community will probably not remember, but as a for instance, ArmorCon 2019, Brian Schmidt and I end up playing in a tournament where TJ Marconi also happens to be. The boss was trying to get TJ a shot at the world title, turned into a 2-on-1 handicap match. Schmidt and I end up beating Marconi, and then we get a shot at the tag titles at PAX Unplugged, right? Like, to me, that kind of long-term storytelling stuff matters. It should matter, right? And just throwing people at title contention, or just saying that title contention is only going to come from winning tournaments or something, to me, that doesn't work long term.
Oh, it most definitely doesn't work.
I think that just doesn't work, because there's not going to be any motivation to create a story behind it. And I'd much rather see stories behind these things.
Oh yes.
I totally agree with that. I think which I know we still, there's still people at promo. I try to do it ever so often, but I would like to see way more promos and build-ups and make it very interesting. I think, just my opinion. I don't know yours, but I kind of feel like we've sort of gotten a little bit away from it, just a little bit more than what it should have, what it used to be anyway. Back in the day, we used to promo all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Three Kings aren't as active anymore, and they were big promo guys, despite whatever else they were, which sometimes they were a little crazy, but they were big promo guys. Um, Rust Belt, to be honest, some parts of Rust Belt have been a little rusty lately, just in terms of other things in life going on. Totally understand. I get that, believe me, more than anybody. Um, but the energy of TVA and what they bring is helpful to replenish this. The energy of the Unionverse is helpful to replenish this. Um, and I'm looking forward to maybe a little balance of power shifting to the Deep South here in terms of getting some eyes and attention on us in big stories in the second half of this year.
And let's go back to this subject in 1 second, because we're in that middle portion of the show where we have a lot of rapid fire questions that we would like to ask. So, Bob, to start off, pineapple or sheep?
Definitely sheep.
Sheep. Horse or shark?
Usually shark. Yeah, I'm good with shark.
Cheese or pickle?
Ooh. How about neither? I'm going to be honest, not a big cheese or pickle fan. Sorry.
Harder ones. Candyman Dan or Candyman?
Like them both very dearly. So, just Candy Fam. How about that?
Candy Fam, okay. Cat or dog?
This one makes me sad. I am currently a cat owner, and I love my cat very dearly, but I grew up with a dog, so
Okay. I mean, you
we'll
might
say
get an
cat for now.
angry... You might... Okay. Dark Prince or the Nightmare King?
Definitely Dark Prince. We'll see if Dark Prince can manage to get his way into the heel of the year category this year. Yeah.
I mean, lined up with the Union, I really don't know where their allegiances line, because they're very, like... They don't seem to be bad, but they're very bad at a lot of things that they do.
And their PR guy Slamilton has some issues too, frankly. I thought bathtub and shower promos were gone. I really thought we were done with those, and then I see Slamilton in his shower for reasons I cannot explain.
No one can explain them. And their production guy needs his own production guy. Hi, Dustin. God, I love throwing shade with that. And of course, we have for the Union verse, their muscle question mark, and he has a question right now. The Dark Prince, please go ahead and ask your question.
What's up there, Bob Dunn? I heard you actually appreciate me, and I appreciate you, sir. Now, my two questions for you. Who will be your dream opponent in LFF?
My dream opponent. I mean, I have been very fortunate to take on a lot of good contenders in the LFF over the years. And I hope that at some point I will get the rematch against the Grump that I deserve from Grand Gathering 1. I would like it to be for the World Championship, because I think that would be a match we could sell. But
I would definitely agree and approve on that one. I do agree and approve. Second one is, if you were in any company and you were after the tag team titles, which company would you go to, and which partner will you bring with you?
You saying if I could go to any company as a professional wrestler?
Basically, yes.
Okay. I mean, I would want to be in 90s WWF, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a reason the brain existed in that time frame. And we don't have managers in the same vein now. That in 90s WWF, despite despite the steroids and the
Pineapple
craziness
or
of that
sheep,
time in
Bob?
wrestling. You know, it was a time where you could have an intelligence factor as your manager, and get away with it. And also, you know, that was Mr. Perfect in his glory days, in his, you know, in his best days for sure.
So you will pick
So
Mr. Perfect as your tag team partner for WWF, correct?
if I needed a tag team partner, I would want to go with Mr. Perfect.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Carry on, guys, and
Hmm.
thank you, Bob Dunn.
Mr. Perfect is a very perfect partner for some character like Bob the Brain Dunn. Also, Creative Goon, thank you for the tier 1. We already asked that, pineapple and sheep, and Bob chose sheep because that is truly the only answer to that question.
Yeah, well, who knows what Matt Nealon's doing these days, but it's not anything I need to be involved with.
Mhm. And Kerhausen asks Beast or Kerhausen.
I mean, I like both. I'm a big Beast fan right now. I mean, that win over Harvey Luster was pretty solid.
That was
So
a dominating win.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and you know, I think there's a lesson in there for all of us in terms of just what happened during the match and everything, and just letting things flow normally as they would. So, you know, it's it's a good lesson in sportsmanship, and it turned out to be a great solid win for the Beast this week.
Mm-hmm. And congratulations to him once again. We also had another question from Kerhausen. What would you say are your top single feature matches of your career thus far?
Wow, interesting. Certainly capturing the world title and defending it twice is big. You
High
know,
profile match against Eddie Fury in Vegas.
yeah. Taking the title literally in person in Las Vegas, inside the MGM Grand Casino, at a table in a bar, you know, is if you can do it, that's how I recommend getting your title wins. Is ambushing your opponent in their home state and taking it off their hands in person. And then, you know, the two wins over what is now a 2023 character, right? Before he was changed, in terms of beating both of the last two Gen Con champions with their Devil's Advocate decks. That was pretty big to me. Yeah, Yasmin and Matt Nealon, solid character, solid deck. It took a lot to get those wins, and I'm proud of those wins. I think in terms of other matches that were big and huge, my match with the Beast, that was a tables match, January of last year. I think it was January of last year. Was one of the biggest. That tables match where Beast threw Schoolboy, which of course does get the plus bonus to finish rolls in tables format because it's a finish grapple. He threw Schoolboy at me, and I was not running grab the tights. And I had to survive Schoolboys on crowd meter 3. I think it was crowd meter 3 was the last time he hit me with Schoolboy, and then finally managed to sneak in a win somehow, and ended up capturing that match. That was a big deal and a lot of fun. And then you know, my finals I was in the finals of the first 2 Cookies Fortune formats. Right. So, you know, playing Ricky Riot for the Cookies Fortune first cycle, playing against James Booker for the Cookies Fortune in the second cycle, were both big time matches. And then of course the triple threat ladder match with Matt Nealon, Booker, and myself too. That's one of the ones that is thankfully encapsulated on a card art, and is one of my all-time favorites.
Creative Goon is asking, would one of them be when you beat up a little kid?
All right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a minute. I have nothing but respect for Mallory, and I told her parents so before we knew that we were playing, right? And so just to rehash beat a dead horse here a bit, for those of you who are not aware of the situation, it was Sunshine SmackDown 1. It was our first CAC and the only one so far we've held here in Florida. And I was playing as the Grump, and I was on a roll. I mean, that was one of my top periods, I think, in terms of individual play. And it was supposed to be a singles top 8. Supposed to be a singles top 8. And somehow the decision got made, not my decision, but between the store owner and Calais, the decision got made that we were going to a top 12, and that was to get more people in. And as you know, once you go to a top 12, you have to have triple threats somewhere.
Yep.
So the decision was top 12 singles, which I won, ended up in triple threats. And there were 2 of us that were undefeated. And the idea was that the undefeateds could pick the person that went into their pod with them. So I ended up taking Eto, who's a local with us here in Florida. And I took him because I knew the deck. I knew his deck. He was running the rec. I knew every card in that deck. I could memorize it and read it back to you. And Loudmouth, who was in the other pod, picked Mysterious as his pod partner. So, surprise, surprise, that meant that Cannoli and Mallory the Destroyer were randomly assigned between the pods.
Mm-hmm.
Mallory gets assigned to our pod. Cannoli gets assigned to the other pod. Loudmouth and Jen basically roll over Cannoli.
Yep.
Leading to Mysterious going to the finals. And I mean, I was hitting pretty much on all cylinders. So I mean, I hit the first 2 finishes in the matchup against Mallory and Eto and couldn't put either one of them away. And it ended up being on crowd meter 2, where I finally got back the Grumpy Day, which is, if you don't know, is Grump's finish that gives you 3 10s.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw it again against Mallory. She couldn't stop it. Eto was out of stops. And I rolled a 12. And that was fine. Except then I told Eto, you don't have to roll with her. I mean, there's nothing in the rule book that says you have to help.
Of course not.
And this is why we don't do triple threats in creative competitors anymore. Because Eto and I made a deal where I told him I would give him the CAC, and I did when we won. I still had to beat Mysterious, by the way, who was playing as Snake Pit in a best 2 out of 3 finals, just to be clear.
Creative Goon, there were no bribes involved with anything. It just so happens that some people got to go to Disneyland afterwards, and a character got made.
The Disney tickets were already given before the match. And I created Mallory the Destroyer. I had told Frequent Flyer and SOG and the SOG mom that I wanted to create Mallory the Destroyer for her even before we started the event. If you remember, the very next day was the beginning of that year's Kickstarter.
Yep.
And so that year's Kickstarter, I picked up a creative competitor, gave that one to Mallory, and then gave the one that I won to Eto. So that's how that all went down.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, no extra Bob characters were created. 2 new people got competitors, and everything else is just hearsay at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a lot about that day. I remember death threats. I do remember that they were trying to shield me from them by deleting things off the Facebook group as quickly as possible. But yeah, that was an interesting day.
And now one of those competitors got 2020 because of the Italian Bombata. I mean, there were a lot of reasons that one of those competitors got 2020. That gimmick is just annoying.
Yeah.
He's still very annoying if you're willing to play him. And he has one of the strongest strike finishes in the game.
By 100% he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say Quadruple H may have taken his place,
Oh,
which is
most
kind of
definitely.
crazy.
Sledgy the Sledgehammer is kind of painful.
Quadruple H is just, I mean, all praise to those who have made him work. That's just, I can't believe how well that character has paid off.
Mm-hmm. Old school competitors are strong. Who would have thought? Even Gate Harryhausen the shot with a new guy CAC. Yep. Strong as a tornado. Oh yeah, no. Original everybody is still a very strong tornado. Probably could use a one stronger grapple finish, I think, to make him a de facto threat in tornado.
He could also play a generic in tornado, which I think actually would be pretty good because
double death drop, definitely a viable option there.
Yeah.
Isn't the sub the one that he? No. He's one of the weird ones where the grapple is the spotlight and the sub is not. Okay, yeah, no, a better sub definitely.
Yeah, but I mean, even again, newer cards have come out that have made him better. Now, Eto doesn't even play him anymore. I don't even know if he has him built, to be honest. But I would think that with a bunch of the new cards, like all those stops that just say your hand size is +1 for no reason.
Yep.
I would think that he probably is a lot better than he used to be if you really wanted to go back and give that another shot. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the player of the year.
So many accolades. What is the one accolade that you still want to get?
That's a good question. There's like an immediate there's a short-term answer and there's a long-term answer, I think. You know, I would like to think that long-term a player of the era is not out of the question. But the shorter term answer is I really want the Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam.
And that's going to be really hard because I don't have a dedicated tag partner right now. My closest thing to a dedicated tag partner is Prince Butters, and he can't always make it to all the same events that I'm going to. You know, we don't have the advantage of like Dangerous Alliance living in the same town and driving together in places.
I mean, but besides that, you've held the heavyweight. You're a 2-time Underworld.
Yeah.
You've held the Tornado. You've held twice. Yeah. You have been a multi-time champion in quite a few of these. The one I'm just curious of, have you held any tertiary championships outside of regional?
I was scheduled to face the hardcore champion on the day I went into the hospital.
That's right.
If you remember that. And had to obviously vacate that shot. Very happy that everybody else has been able to get their opportunities since then. So I've never held the hardcore, never held the
trio.
And I've never held trios either. Never held US, never held the intergalactic. You see my FCW title is still back there. Still the FCW champion. If you count concurrent time, 2-time Deep South. If you count concurrent time, I've been the FCW champion for like a year and a half now without interruption. But 6 of those months are kind of cheating.
They went to the unconscious Bob, and it's just like, okay, he wins.
I've defended it twice since I came back. I'm trying to pick up the pace here. Give the FCW guys a chance at least, you know, to take it from me. But yeah, I want tag. I want tag probably more than anything. And I mean, the reason is just like tag is one of those things that in a high variance game, tag is the highest variance.
What do you think of Boss's new tag league semi-bans where you can only use one of the characters on that list if you decide to.
Boss, I hope you're listening. I want to see that list before Origins. You got to get that list out like this week or next week, because I'm being honest, like team construction for Origins is already starting. And frankly, I want this thing in place before Origins. I mean, I think it's time for the good of the game to put some restrictions out and get that list out before Origins. EB Fresh, I hope you're listening. Steve, I hope you're listening. Because that needs to be in place for the summer competition season. I think that if you ask the boss, and I won't put words in his mouth, but my impression, if you were to ask the boss, is that he would like tag teams to be more about random combinations that just happen to work well together. What's happening right now is that tag teams are very much find the weakness and exploit it, because we can double down on effects in short, right? I mean,
oh yeah, hitting someone with 6 grapple finishes is definitely a lot easier than, or is a more efficient way of beating through something. Creative Goon is going, Bob, thinking in the brain, make it happen for Origins.
I would love to. Now, I have promised my Origins tag slot to my father. My dad he's retiring this year, finally, after many years of working, including 4 years in the armed forces, in the Air Force. So he's been working since he was 18 out of high school, put himself through college, working nights, going to night school and working during the day, getting all the way to his retirement this year at 67, and he's retiring, and he is going to go with me and play tag team at Origins. So I promised him this run together. He will not be with me at Gen Con. He will not be with me at Southern Fried, most likely. So I'll be wide open for other tag opportunities then. But my dad's just learned to play a couple of weeks ago. We got a competitor coming out that is one that's inspired by his favorite fandom, Maverick Jones. If you haven't seen it, it should be hopefully on the print run for Origins, if not before.
Awesome.
And
it would be an amazing. Stranger things have happened if you and your father win Origin.
Yeah, that'd be one of those Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Sr. type of trivia questions, right? Like, there have not been that many kind of family team-ups.
I mean, the most prevalent one is generally Wong and Mac Attack.
That's right. And, parent-child team-ups, that could make for a very interesting match in the future if it were ever necessary for something.
Did Brock Smith ever tag with his dad?
No, because in the last Gen Con that the professor attended, he still tagged with Ben, the fourth horseman, Ben Horseman, right? So I don't believe Goat has ever tagged with the professor, even though that certainly could happen right now. Goat, congratulations, by the way, graduating high school this week, so we congratulate him for that.
Oh no, he's going to be
Exciting
out
time.
and about. The summer of Goat.
Summer of the Goat. I don't know what his future plans are, but certainly best of luck and best wishes to him, whatever he's going on to do.
Not in an official scene. Okay, official sense. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, with the newest generation of Super Show players coming in, you have to imagine that there's going to be more father-son, father-daughter groups.
I really hope so, Chibi. I'm going to be honest. I'm, speaking direct. I've been direct the whole time, but speaking extremely directly here. I think we have to bring a younger generation into the game, and we have to not push them out and give them time to learn, right? So, I think of games like Pokemon, who survive with a young group and an older group, and we don't have that kind of age division. I mean, we haven't had a juniors title match in how long, right?
Well, I don't know if we currently have a juniors GM. I mean, Hank
that
the Tank, I don't even remember the last time he defended.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly Gary Schneider, who may have been the GM, has been a lot busier, and there's plenty of reasons that our COVID certainly interfered with the ability for kids to get out and be in store and play each other in person, and you
Mhm.
don't want kids to have to play online, ideally.
Oh, yeah, no.
Lots of good reasons for it, but the game needs the younger generation. The game needs the younger generation to come up. We need the people who have raised their kids in the game to start playing. I'm thinking of Funtime Bob and Orion. I'm thinking of uh, you know, uh, Bill Early and his daughter, Baron Cub, right? I'm thinking of Steve Resk and his daughters as they
Mhm.
start to, Isabella's starting to hit that age where reading comprehension is there. She may not be interested in the card game, but I hope that maybe eventually she will.
Hank
I
defended
think
at Rumble at the Rumble against the Titan Terror.
nice.
Okay, so that was the
Okay,
latest.
so that was January, which I missed the Rumble at the Rumble this year,
Okay,
of course.
so-
But
I mean, it's getting defended, just not monthly like every other title. But, I mean, there's very few in that division to begin with. But hopefully,
yeah,
we will get a new group of them with these large Origins, Gen Con, because that's where families go.
yeah, and I mean, I think this year at Origins and Gen Con, if I were running SRG, I mean, I would make my big focus getting those old school packs on display and getting them out into people's hands, right? I mean,
Most
the
definitely.
wrestlers in the old school packs, if you're at all familiar with wrestling, they're all going to ring a bell to you. All those look-alike characters. And so I mean, I think that I think there's an opportunity to try to grow the game into a younger audience, but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be one of those things where there are lots of competing things for attention.
Yeah. And of course, we also want to hit that teenage demographic eventually too, because
Yep.
right now we're in that over 20, like it's like over 25, and then children or kids of
Yeah.
of the players.
Yep.
Yeah. Getting that teenage audience might be the next step to getting this game into overdrive.
Yeah, I mean, and strong locals
Oh, definitely.
that can attract players who wouldn't otherwise go to conventions is the other part of it that needs to. I mean, that's a necessity to continue to grow.
All right, Bob, thank you so much for coming onto the show. We have one last segment that I always love doing where we give you the chance to ask both myself and Dustin a question. It could be the same question, it can be a different question.
Okay, Chibi, who's the leader of the line?
I'm not a part of the line. How the hell would I know that shit?
I'm thought maybe you had inside information.
Oh, of course not.
I mean, you're here like every Thursday. I figured maybe you just knew.
I know a lot of things. I don't know that.
Okay, that's fair.
Mhm.
Dustin, do you know who the leader of the line is?
Just because Ken is close to me, like 20 minutes out, does not mean that I ask him these personal questions.
I mean, you drove up with him for Grand Gathering. There must have been some secrets told between you two.
No, we don't talk. He just he holds on to the oh shit handle as I go 90 down the way.
Yeah, ratting with Dustin. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I don't go as fast as I used to. So
I'm
that's a plus.
glad to hear it because that sounds like points on your license passed. If you're asking me.
Yeah. Ugh.
Bob, thank you once again. It's always a pleasure. I'm glad to have you back in the community after being out for so long. Hopefully, you're closer to 100% by the later conventions, because I want to see the old brain coming back, trying to win those big events again. Because I mean, locals and your random Monday and Thursday are good. I want to see you be taking those titles again.
Yeah, that's definitely on my radar.
And
Thank
I'll
you
say,
both for your
Bob,
time.
it's a pleasure having you as well. Of course, I'm looking forward to playing you. I was saying on our show for a while, I've got that Advil ready for a Crowd Meter 3 game that we normally have.
Sounds about right.
I want to say that just about everybody, even your locals that was around you, just about everybody we had on the show, I tried to keep asking, prayers for you at the time, and everybody, like there's not one negative comment ever.
I won't
When
say
it
anything
comes to
bad about the Bob.
no. What I'm saying is, you're such a good example of this game, and and like I posted earlier or yesterday, one of the most selfless persons I know. And a lot of people have learned this game through you, Edo, and a lot of your locals, and even some not even in y'all's locals that love you to death. And where we love you as a community, and I'm just glad that you're improving.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And certainly looking forward to getting out on the road and seeing everybody in person.
Yep. All right,
Starting this Sunday.
Yes, this Sunday up in New York, or is it New York or New Jersey that it's in?
It is New York. We're on Long Island.
Okay, cool. All right, Dustin, who do we have for next week?
Next week, I am in talks. I'm pretty much sure that it's supposed to be TJ Marconi.
TJ Marconi, the
So I'll be
Titan of the
sure to get
Northeast.
those. I may do what I did on season 1 and, start out. I gotta eat a pickle. So
No, you do that immediately.
TJ Marconi and I were supposed to have a feud and then be tag team partners at one point. Now that guy hasn't showed up in forever. We're gonna have to have a conversation with him.
Be in the Zoom room next week.
Yeah.
Until then, can I get a bye, man?
And I'll see y'all later.
Till next time.